and kindly introduce yourselves and tell us which organization you are representing. And we would like to reiterate one more time, like what Ma'am Ichu said a while ago, your help to like spread the word about the celebrations and events that we have lined up for you will be of great help, lalo na ito yung launching namin mismo. Yeah, so we would like to see how far all this goes para mas mapapalaki pa natin ang ating plataforma sa mga susunod na taon. There, so the floor is now open for questions.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm MJ Balaguer of DCMJ Online. My question is to DOST PTRI Director kasi po hindi ko napakinggan yung contribution. What is the contribution of DOST, especially the PTRI, on this month celebration of Philippine Creative Industry Month?
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. On behalf of the DOST Secretary, may I convey some of our initiatives. So, for the Philippine Textile Research Institute in particular, we are technically on the last final leg of releasing the materials for the textile. This is related to the PCIM. Ano po? The release of the textile bootcamp this month, but the end will be during the National Youth Science and Technology Fair in October. So this is also an initiative from Congress, which was also inserted in our budget, the DOST budget last year. In particular po sa Philippine Textile Research Institute, we wanted to elevate the level of the knowledge of our TVET and senior high school students as far as their responsible, sustainable use of Philippine textiles. Kasi marami po hindi po alam. So yung iba, ginagawang table runner, yung loincloth ng Cordillera, for example, or ginagawa nating bolero, yung death blanket ng Abra. These are all some of the things that we sometimes overdo. And through this initiative, we wanted to raise the awareness of responsible use of Philippine textiles. At the same time, it's merging with our Philippine fashion industry. So TVET and senior high school po yung tinatarget natin because the earlier we go, the better. Para po hindi lang ito about sketching and making new clothes, but also making them very, very aware of the creative and cultural value of these fabrics. So that's one, the textile boot camp. We are also launching this month the Bamboo Textiles PH. This is some of the new developments on the DOSC side. We were able to get textile fiber from bamboo. We are now just waiting for the IP protection before we open our mouth. Otherwise, baka mawala na naman po yung intellectual property sa atin. But technically, bamboo textile fiber, which can be used as part actually of the uniform for government. So there's also another law that mandates the use of Philippine textiles for our government uniforms, and that's the second one that we are also launching for this month. And yung pangatlo po is towards the end of the month, we are also holding the launch of the Philippine Handloom Weaving Conference, which is the technical arm of the Likha initiatives of Malacanang. And this one also provides us a better perspective of handloom weaving from the scientific and technological perspective. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you din po.
Thank you so much for that question. And thank you so much, Director Julius Leaño, for that very insightful answer. I didn't know there were yung mga misuse ng textiles. And it's so hard to look for resources, actually, to educate ourselves on that. So it's good that you're going down to the high school.
Yeah, sundutin ko lang yun. Kasi mataas na rin po kasi ngayon yung issue ng counterfeiting of Philippine textiles. So it's also one that has caught the attention of Congress in the middle of the pandemic. Kasi yung Cordillera weaves po, tina-transfer na nila as prints. And then yung iba naman, nagpapanggap na woven textiles in the Philippines, but they are not. So only for trained eyes, you would see immediately, hindi yan. Pero paano pag hindi trained yung eyes mo? And Filipinos are also very obsessed with cheaper fabrics. So napupunta po tayo dun sa trade na yon. And we wanted to stop that at the very onset. And this is part of our commitment as well with Congress, because the anti-counterfeiting part is also corrupting the industry as well. So these are part of the initiatives that we're trying to push. Maraming salamat.
Thank you po, sir. That's a very urgent issue indeed. And speaking of textiles, we also have, like right over on this side, there's a tinalak weaving demo right there. So if you want to educate yourselves further and become like an interactive activity, then po, you can visit this side of the booth. All right, so we have another question.
Good afternoon to our panelists. I'm EJ Gomez po from CNN Philippines. My question is for Kong De Venecia. Sir, you mentioned during your speech earlier that we need more investments for the Philippine creative industry because in fact, investors are interested. I would like to elaborate more on that. And of course, the bigger question there is how exactly can the government develop the market for malikhaing produkto ng mga malikhaing Pinoy?
All right. I'm going to answer it initially, and then I'm going to pass it on to you, Sekvita, because that's exactly what we were just talking about like 30 seconds ago. Yeah, so I am the Vice Chair of Appropriations, and I'm defending the budget of DTI, so I've been sort of making myself more aware of all the programs and all of the successes and all the challenges. But I was so happy to see like one creative industry related investment approved by the Board of Investments. And of course, we need to amp up our investment promotions in this particular sector. I mentioned the MOU with Indonesia earlier. This was entered into by the Philippines and Indonesia just days after the first State of the Nation address of the President. And I had an opportunity to discuss this with Minister Santiago Uno of the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy at the Creative Economy Forum last year in Bali. And so this is something that we're looking forward to materializing to see how we can encourage more cooperation, not just within the bilateral relationship of Philippines and Indonesia, but also how to mainstream creative economy in the ASEAN through creating a technical working group. Because this is really something that is an emerging economic sector within ASEAN. Here in the Philippines, of course, when we commissioned that study with the Philippine Statistics Authority, we were so surprised with the figures that they were able to generate, while of course we're still firming up the methodology for capturing that information. But again, we need to educate our different investment promotions agencies on the different opportunities that await investors when they come to the Philippines to support the creative ecosystem in the country. Of course, that's the investment promotion agencies, and not to mention activation of the CREATE law and the incentives that await these locators and investors in the creative industries. Maybe Yusek Fita can expound on that a bit more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kong Tof, our creative champion with our catalyst. Kung hindi talaga dun sa ginawa ni Kong Tof nung pandemic, imagine, no, he did all this work amid the pandemic. But going back to the question, in terms of how we're creating the markets to attract more investments, siguro, dadagdagan ko lang yung sinabi ni Kong Tof, we do a lot of promotion, especially now that there's really a huge demand, not only for outsourced creative activities, but the demand really is bigger for creative works, original content. And given the Malikhaing Pinoy program, given the PISIDA, really yun yung crucial as we create the environment that would enable us to build this capacity and be able to realize our objective, and that is to become Asia's creative hub in the very near future. So I was just telling Kong Tof about the recent festival where we participated. We had a booth together with FDCP, the Film Development Council of the Philippines, and we were able to generate sales of around $30 million US, covering mga sales yon, mga co-production, and other funding. And at the same time, sumama din, we were bringing 10 animation companies who participated in pitching competition. Maraming nag-attend dun sa Philippine booth. Marami tayong kasabay, pero napuno yung booth natin. And at the same time, there was also a Southeast Asian pitching competition organized there at ANSI. Tatlo naman yung companies natin that participated there. So it is through this participation in exhibitions and fairs abroad that we're able to demonstrate to the world kung ano yung capacities and capabilities, the creativity, and then yun nga, no, the fusion of technology, culture, and creativity here in the Philippines. And we're hoping that through all these initiatives and through our sustained efforts, we'll really be able, Kong Top, to realize yung mga goals that you mentioned earlier. If not, sana we'll be able to double in 2 years time, in a short period of time. And that's how really yung Malikhaing Pinoy and the PISIDA are really crucial in terms of achieving all of this. Hindi lang yung investments, but at the same time, through these investments, we're able to create not just any job, pero quality jobs.
Thank you, Yusek Aldaba. Going back, just two follow-ups po. Kong, you mentioned about the budget. For this year, we have 410 million pesos po, no? Can you cite lang po kung ano po yung mga aspect exactly, kung saan po channel initially itong 410 million pesos? And for next year, are we pushing for higher budget po for the creative industry?
Yes, so I believe the Young Creative Challenge is the 50 million. And then the 250 million was just recently downloaded to DTI by the DBM. And that's essentially the funding source for all of the Malikhaing Pinoy programs that were discussed earlier by DTI during the program. And then, of course, there is the 110 million that I believe will be downloaded sometime next year. The budget appropriations are usually valid for 2 years. And so at least we have seed capital for Malikhaing Pinoy for next year. Now we are in the process of deliberating the budget for 2024. And the initial allocation of the DBM to Malikhaing Pinoy is 50 million. As opposed to last year, it was 0. So for me, that's already a win that our economic managers recognize the value that creative industries bring to the table. Of course, it's now incumbent upon us in the lower house, in the Senate, to be able to raise the 50 million to at least at the same level or even higher, because really, what I failed to mention earlier in our message is that the goal is for the Philippines to be the #1 creative economy in ASEAN by 2030. So it's now 2023. So we have 7 years to do that. So now we have a developmental framework in place because of the law. Now we just need the resources so that they can implement the different mandates of the law so that we can pump up and prime up our performance, especially in exports of our creative content. I said earlier, we are #1 in ASEAN in exporting our creative services. Of course, we've always known that Philippines is a very service-oriented country. Our service is really, bar none, it's really the best if not in ASEAN, in the entire world. But our creative goods are sort of middling because of so many different problems. Of course, high power rates, a weak or a struggling manufacturing base. We have logistics concerns. And then now, this creative industry law is an enabling mechanism for a whole of government approach to developing the sector and addressing the many different pain points that have been plaguing the different creative industry sectors for decades. If I may just share, I remember our hearings for the furniture and fashion industry, and they told us that it's more expensive to ship your furniture from Visayas or Cebu to NCR than to Singapore. So why is that? there are so many problems, and for the longest time, creative industry is super bottom in the priority list. So now we're just elevating the profile, so more and more government agencies are able to actually allocate passion, energy, and action to solving these issues.
One last question po from the CNN Philippines. Anyone can answer po. Ibabalang po natin dun para sa mga kapwa natin Pilipino, especially those involved or kabilang sa creative industry po dito sa bansa natin. What can our kababayans expect with this program po natin, and now that we have the law, and what's the future of creative industry in the Philippines?
Yes, for the Department of Tourism, on behalf of Secretary Cristina Frasco, we're very excited to be part of the Philippine Creative Industries Month because for the longest time, our Secretary and of course the DOT has been championing tourism not only to be something that's consumed or experienced, but really more on co-created by not only our international tourists, but also our local tourists. So what we've been doing for the DOT side is to host for December, and of course there will be a pre-congress that will happen this September in line with the Philippine Creative Industries Month. Creative Tourism Summit, which will happen in December 6 to 9, wherein we'll be bringing experts from across the globe to teach our tourism officers, to teach our local government units in creating products that are more in tune with the Filipino spirit. No? It's not just about letting our tourists experience the Philippines by consuming it, but also by creating opportunities for them to co-create with the locals, to be more immersive, to be more participative in nature. So sa amin, yun yung gusto naming ibahagi as part of the creative industries. We want tourism to be more proactive in terms of creating opportunities for our locals and for our tourism stakeholders to be co-creative with our guests, our foreigners, both and also for our domestic tourists.
Good afternoon, sir. For the ICT, good afternoon, everyone.